Graphing vertical and horizontal lines. So we have two types of equations that are kind of what I consider special equations when we go to graph them. And what we'll notice in these equations is we're graphing on a coordinate plane, which requires that we have two variables, because I need an ordered pair. But when we look at the equation, you will only see one variable. So the minute you know we're talking about a linear equation, and there's only one variable, blinking red light should go off in your head, little sirens, a little neon sign that says, hang on, special line, because the special line has some special characteristics to it. So we're going to look at two of them. So the graph of y equals a number. So the only variable that's going to be in this equation is the variable y, so we only have an output, is a horizontal line, so notice we have a horizontal line here, that passes through, and here's my ordered pair, 0 equals 0, and then comma, whatever that number is that was in the original equation. So they're going to ask us to graph y equals 3. So when I go to make a table for this one, because remember our pattern for graphing these is pick some numbers for x, make a table, and then graph those. That's our basic pattern. So I go to make a table, but wait a minute, I can't pick any values for x because it's not actually telling me anything about x, but it is telling me something about y. It's telling me that y has to be 3. So I know that in my table, y can only be 3. Y has to be 3. They didn't tell me anything about x, which means x can be any number that I want. So I plugged in those numbers that I usually use. Oh, I don't know how I went to 3 here, but I plugged in some numbers for x. Y has to be 3. That's the only thing they're telling me has to be true. X, you can do whatever you want with it. So then when I graphed those ordered pairs, negative 1, 3, 0, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, I noticed that those points all make a horizontal line here. So remember we talked about some of the characteristics of our lines, what they look like. This is a perfectly horizontal line. It doesn't have any steepness to it. It's perfectly horizontal. And it goes through the y-axis at positive 3. So our equation has one variable in it. The only variable in it is y. So it's going to cross the y-axis at y equals 3. Remember our order passes through 0, 3. There it is right there. Some other ordered pairs that I come up with, I can pick whatever I want for x. But the y value has to be 3. We end up with a horizontal line. All right, the other special line that we may see doesn't have a y, it has an x. So the graph of x equals a number is a vertical line that passes through the number and then 0. So remember, x is 0, so that number goes in the x value of our coordinate plane. Let's graph x equals negative 4. So again, I tend to go and make a table first. This tells me x has to be negative 4. So in my x column of my table, I'm going to put all negative 4s because they told me x has to be negative 4. Y, on the other hand, they didn't tell me anything about y, so I can do whatever I want with y. I just pick some numbers there. Then I'm going to go graph them. Remember that this line goes through whatever my number is, negative 4, 0. So negative 4, 0 is over here on my x-axis. There it is in my table. And then I plug in my other values, negative 4, negative 1, negative 4, 1, negative 2, and I've seen that vertical line. So again, you can think about it as creating a table. I find this part very helpful to me. You can think about, well, x is that number, y is going to be whatever we want it to be. It goes through my number 0 on the x-axis. So you notice this line goes through the x-axis, but it doesn't touch the y-axis at all. And if you think about how steep it is, it's perfectly straight. It's kind of like a cliff more than a steep line there. It's just a straight drop. Okay, so our two special equations, there's only one variable in them, so you may see x equals some kind of a number, or y equals some kind of a number, and that should set off kind of blinking red lights in your brain to say this is a special line. It looks a little bit different than some of the other equations that we've been graphing. It's going to be either vertical if it's x equals, or horizontal if it's y equals.